Friends come just to watch you dunk over kids or throw down an alley-oop. Coach hands you a letter from North Carolina. Next week, one from Duke. A few days after, UConn. You're wanted everywhere by everyone. Signing day comes along, and of course, you accept the full ride to your father's alma mater, Kansas University. Freshman year, you lead them to the Elite Eight round of the NCAA tournament. Sophomore year, you win the big dance, the national championship. Named tournament MVP in a unanimous vote. June rolls around, and you're the #1 pick in the NBA draft, headed to the Big Apple to play for the New York Knicks. Preseason rolls around, and you receive a letter from the National Collegiate Athletic Association telling you they know you received improper benefits while being recruited. How did they find out? It was only $120,000 to help you make your decision. What? Stripped of your national championship and tournament MVP award? What will your former teammates think? Why doesn't the NCAA just pay the student athletes? The NCAA prohibits any type of payment for student athletes other than the varying minuscule stipend occasionally received. Everyone in here has played a sport at one point in their life, or has filled out the NCAA tournament bracket, or has tried to pick who should win the BCS National Championship game. Today, I will inform you on why the NCAA should never pay student athletes and how to prevent them from being tempted to receive illegal payments. 1, because most student athletes already have their tuition paid by a scholarship. 2, when student athletes are paid, the competition level decreases because the student athlete becomes like a professional and is an employee of the school. And 3, paying student athletes would bankrupt most colleges. To define some things for later in the speech, from dictionary.com, a stipend is a periodic payment, especially a scholarship or fellowship allowance granted to a student, which is usually annually by semester or monthly. And from the NCAA, these definitions: illegal benefits are a gift from an outside source as a form of payment to a student athlete, mainly for performance-based. And a student athlete, a student in the NCAA who participates in the college sports sponsored by the school. So yeah, people have argued time and time over whether or not student athletes should be paid, saying that because of the revenue they bring in for the schools, they should receive some of that money. This is relevant because it happens in recruiting every day, most recently with Heisman Trophy winner Cameron Newton, Heisman Trophy winner and New Orleans Saints running back Reggie Bush, and retired NBA player Chris Webber. My first argument is that most student athletes already have their tuition paid for by a scholarship. In my mind, student athletes are already paid for their so-called work. Student athletes perform on the field and in return receive scholarships, top coaching, alumni support, and exposure to professional coaches on a national level. Also, athletes that attend schools with premier athletic programs such as UNC, Duke, or Ohio State are renting the university's high-quality connections and their high-quality connections to pro leagues to get notice and in return perform for the school. Secondly, the competition that everyone believes is so much better than professional sports would decrease because paying these student athletes would make them like a professional, an employee of the school. If student athletes become employees of their schools, who sets the pay rate? Do superstars get paid more? Can they be fired? What for? The president of the NCAA, Mark Emmert, said, "They are student athletes. They are not our employees. They don't work for us, so we don't pay them." Finally, paying student athletes would bankrupt most colleges. First off, the NCAA would have to pay every single student athlete, from Division I to Division III. However, the average top football team nets about $4.2 million annually, while basketball nets only $1.1 million. And the other two big sports, hockey and baseball, lose money annually, according to a study by ESPN. Next, how can you avoid paying student athletes on men's non-revenue producing teams such as wrestling and crew? And how do you ignore Title IX, the federal law that requires athletic departments to spend the same amount of money on women's athletics as they do on men's? The answer: you can't. My plan is to provide student athletes with a monthly stipend of about $150 because they cannot get a job with their busy schedule of sports. This could be presented with an even greater sum of money for when the student-athlete graduates, giving them something to look forward to instead of receiving money to play for a college or receiving illegal benefits like retired NBA player Chris Webber or Heisman Trophy winner Cameron Newton, whose father auctioned him off to Auburn and Mississippi State to play college football. Chris Webber attended the University of Michigan and played for the Fab Five. So here's the video.
Yeah.
Store in Ann Arbor, and it had his jersey hanging in the window, and it was, I think, $75 or something like that. And he had just asked me if I could give him money for gas or pizza or something like that. I couldn't, but he asked anyhow. And he saw his jersey in the window for $75, and he had the number 4. And he said, they're selling that for $75, and that goes to somebody, and I have to borrow money to put gas in my car. And I remember thinking to myself, he's not coming back here.
That night after Chris Webber called that historic timeout, he's walking out of the Superdome, and you knew it was all about to change. Within a week, he had declared for the NBA draft. A year later, Juwan Howard and Jalen Rose joined him in the NBA. King and Jackson are out a couple years later, and at that point, everybody figured the story of the Fab Five was over. But we were wrong. We were really wrong.
Chris Webber has been indicted on charges he lied to a grand jury about his dealings with a Michigan booster.
Webber allegedly lied about receiving $280,000 worth of cash and gifts from booster Ed Martin during his 2-year college career. When I first started recruiting for Michigan, I went to a public league game in Detroit, and at the end of the game, the players I'm watching, they're out on the court with an older gentleman that's celebrating with them. And as a recruiter, I'm thinking, who is this guy? Obviously, he knows all these kids. What was Ed Martin?
The Godfather, Big Money Ed, as we call him. He was a big fan of Southwestern's program. So if there was a player on the team that had busted gym shoes or didn't have boots in the winter, Big Money Ed would make sure that he had a pair of shoes.
Poor people in the Detroit community aren't going to refuse that stuff. And so you could never keep track of how many times Ed Martin picked up a kid and took him here or there while he was at the house, maybe gave him something. All stuff that technically by NCAA violations, probably breaks the rules, but it was just the way things were done in Detroit.
The biggest misconception was that Ed only looked out for the players that were the stars. Ed looked out for all of the kids. And a couple of us became stars.
He said, I make over 6 figures. I'm retired from Ford Motor Company. I'm an electrician. I can work doubles and triples. So, he went through all of that, and I saw nothing at all wrong with his association around kids and programs.
In cities like Detroit, when you're raised like a lot of these kids in our city have to be, you're not worried about breaking NCAA rules in the future. You're worried about eating now. You're worried about how you're going to drive now, what you're going to wear now. Do you have shoes? Do you have something nice to wear if you're going on a date?
The NCAA should never pay student-athletes because most student-athletes have their tuition paid for by a scholarship. When student-athletes are paid, the competition level decreases because they become employees, and paying student-athletes would bankrupt all colleges. If you feel as strongly as I do, please contact the NCAA at www.ncaa.com/contact us via email. So I leave you this. Would you rather your alma mater win a national championship cleanly, or have it stripped years later because one person cheated?